Hello, Gino here, and you are listening to Otherworld Connections. We live in a critical time where now, more than ever, angels and fairies, hidden forces, are bursting at the seams of the veil to work with us. They want to see us change in order to save the world and live in service to others. So join me on a journey to empowerment and enlightenment with an angelic angle and a fairy focus, looking into ways to improve our current situation, morality, archetypes, solutions for self-healing, and spiritual sciences in light of theosophy and other occult traditions.
Hello, welcome back to Otherworld Connections. And we are... Well, thank you. I am snug as a bug in a rug. Thank you to Comet and Monster383. We are streaming live through Brave Talk. The management at Revolution Radio have really pulled a rabbit out of a hat, trying to find solutions to get things going. And they have. And, yeah, I just hope we all don't bother you guys too much. Oh, my goodness. So, yes, you are tuned into revolution.radio. It's the number one listener-supported station. I'm just going to close this Discord chat down. Number one listener-supported station in the whole world. So please help support our efforts and airtime by making a donation. And let's have a little look on how you can go about that. Where's my page here? Wrong page. Well, anyway, the ways to donate are on the homepage. Can be accessed through the homepage, revolution.radio. You can donate through Patreon. There's a link to the sign-up page on revolution.radio. You can do snail mail, checks and money orders in US denomination. Direct payment through the station's credit union's online banking system called Autobooks. And this is restricted to the United States and Canada. And you can pay through cryptocurrency. The currently accepted cryptocurrencies are Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Bitcoin Cash. DonorBox is an international alternative to PayPal, similar in format but simpler to use. Available via the station's donations and homepages sections. All right. And you can consider advertising your service or your goods or your show on the homepage of Revolution Radio for the paltry sum of $25 a month. Just don't take advantage of other people's goodwill and righteousness, and make sure that thing that you are selling is not a scam, please. Hey guys, narcissists and psychopaths are overrepresented in industries of care. Just a reminder that you can find the link to anything I read or refer to during the show in the description of this episode once it's published on my website. Yeah, my website. thesecretkindergarten.com and on all my channels. Yeah, YouTube. Did you know that I started doing all this in 2019 and I got a lifetime ban from YouTube? Somebody in the world really loves me and they set out to destroy me. But you will not destroy me. It's true though, I was banned for 4 years or something like that. It was meant to be a lifetime ban. And then when everything calmed down post post-COVID 1984, probably get banned for saying that now. Once that all calmed down, I just re-signed up under a pseudonym. And surprisingly, it worked. But the letter, I should have kept it. Because someone said, hey, you got to show me the email. And I was so pissed off, I deleted it. So it sounds like I'm lying. I got no proof. But you're just going to have to believe me. Why would I make this up? it was like you may not. It was basically you may not have anything to do with YouTube from your IP address or any YouTube anything. Just get out of here, tell your story, walk in, don't come back. And that's a true story. But you know, I mean, who cares about YouTube, right? But I'm back on YouTube. Does that change anything? Not really, because I'm not monetized. And if I was monetized, I'd probably end up owing them money somehow. Oh my gosh. So we are continuing today. Ow. Brain, get working. We are talking about reasons. Popular reasons for eliminating fairy tales. Reason number 2. Because of the dire circumstances and traumatic circumstances. Desensitizing to the dear wee sensitive children of the world. So that's the reason. It's tied in with the first reason, really, that fairy tales are too violent. Those are those are part of dire circumstances. I guess I'm talking about poverty. Poverty is a huge theme in fairy tales. And all we're doing is hammering home the point that there are there's a duality to everything. There is an upside down or back to frontness of what goes on in the life of a child. Rudolf Steiner talked a lot about this. One example is the color green being good for the blood. Literally, physically good for the blood. Green and red are on opposite colors of the color wheel. So, for children to see green, what's green? Nature. For children to be out playing in nature, their eyeballs are taking in green frequency into their eyes, and it is affecting their blood in a positive way. That sort of thing. So that's the kind of thing we have to keep in mind. We don't really have to know the point of, say, for example, poverty in fairy tales. I'm just going to jump onto the Discord again. I'm just going to double check that everything's going cool. Everything is going cool. So excellent. All right. Yep. So we are looking at, to get this idea, I found a book by Anita Tarr, and it's a 2024 book. So with all books published after probably 2000, it's opposite land, right? So in Canada, they're going to be, they're considering or trying to burn all books published before 2000. So that tells you that any book published after the year 2000 probably has some BS, woke, agenda stuff going on in it. Now, I'm not saying this necessarily does. But as they say, a broken clock is right twice a day. I think there's a bit more to it than that in this book. But this book is called Lying, Truthtelling and Storytelling in Children's and Young Adult Literature. Literature. That was really funny to me, anyway. So, the point I'm trying to make is apologetics is what I'm trying to say. The paradigm in the world of pedagogy, child development, is based around making excuses for bad behavior. So this book could be making excuses for lying. But anyway, we know that lying is bad. It's one of the 7 deadly sins. But we also know that there are probably times in our life where lying is not a sin. And it might be something that gets us out of a predicament. It might be something that doesn't cause actually any harm to anybody. But yeah, don't lie if your if your wife doesn't look good in that dress. Don't lie about that. You can, but you should tell her the truth. So then, when she does look good in a dress, it's the truth. It's not just, oh yes, dear, you look lovely in that. Oh my goodness. Chapter 3. Is fiction a pack of lies? From the book Lying, Truthtelling and Storytelling in Children's and Young Adult Literature. Oh, and one more thing. I have been invited to perform at a online music festival called Sound Path to Freedom. Believe it or not. So I'm actually doing double time down here, writing a whole bunch of songs. I'm going to get my electric guitar out. Hopefully it's all happening. So I will post that. I'll post updates to that here. And yeah. So that should be cool, should be fun. And you know what? I'm not a half bad songwriter. Terrible guitarist, terrible singer. Not a half bad songwriter. You'll be, nodding your head a little bit for 5 seconds, then clicking away to something more important to you in your life. That's okay. Is fiction a pack of lies? Lies! Patricia McLaughlin's The Facts and Fictions of Minna Pratt from 1988, never heard of this, is one of the few novels for children. So we're assuming probably something like 7 to 14 year olds. Possibly a little bit younger. Well, for reading age children, right? So, what's the point of my story? Well, someone might have a younger brother or sister that just sits in on the story reading, and someone's reading them out loud. That's perfect. Okay, it's one of the few novels for children that directly address the lying/truth-telling/storytelling paradox straight on, as it begins with a quotation from Pablo Picasso. We all know that art is not truth. Art is a lie that makes us realize the truth. Minna Pratt, a cellist, is pining for the signal of her maturation as a musician, gaining a vibrato, which is McLaughlin's analogue for Minna's understanding of fiction, as both lies and truth. A vibrato usually arrives by practicing over and over until it inexplicably arrives. Just as a realization of the lying/truth-telling/storytelling paradox is comprehended after exposure to lots of different kinds of stories. Much like an initiation, right? Eventually, you initiate to, 7 years old, you come online, and maybe perhaps that's when you understand that stories are just stories, lies. And in the fairy tale's case, lies to understand the truth. Minna, though, has help understanding the paradox because her mother is a writer for children. Above her writing desk, she posts letters from her readers, as well as quotations. Such as from Rudyard Kipling. Fiction is fact's elder sister. And another from, and another from Robert Browning. Fancy with fact is just one fact the more. But one message is always there for Minna to see. Fact and fiction are different truths. At first, Minna doesn't understand any of these quotations, any more than she understands why she doesn't yet have a vibrato. Excuse me for one moment. All right, excuse me. Right, fancy with fact is just one fact the more, but one message is always there for Minna to see. Fact and fiction are different truths. At first, Minna doesn't understand any of these questions any more than she understands why she doesn't yet have a vibrato. As her frustrations about her vibrato grow, her confusion about fact and fiction steadily increases. Magnified by her younger brother McGrew's own misunderstanding. When he writes a school science report on beavers, not by conducting research, but by making up facts. That was the AI before AI. Completely just lying. Way more creative than using AI. Minna challenges him, thinking the research facts, the truths. Made up facts are not true. McGrew defends himself by saying that because their mother as a writer makes up facts, then I can too. Minna yells, exasperated, "That's fiction! It's not true!" Minna's mother tries to calm Minna, reminding her that fiction is one kind of truth, a different kind. At the end of the novel, Minna writes her mother a letter, posing as just another reader who desires a response. Her mother realizes that the letter is a ruse and that Minna feels neglected, and so she makes sure that their communication improves. Her mother then shows Minna a letter from one of her readers that says, "I love your stories. I am wondering, are they all lies?" Minna asks how her mother responded, and she says, "Some of them are and some of them are not. But they are all true." And I'm starting to feel like in terms of creation, we're getting a third dynamic, which is using AI. It's not really a truth or a lie. It's something else, isn't it? Not good, buddy. Minna seems content with this answer, clearly showing her growing maturity as an artist and as a human being. Not only does Minna gain a much desired vibrato, she also begins to appreciate how fiction and fact are both truths. The facts and fictions of Minna Pratt, though simple and somewhat contrived, is an exemplary text that illustrates how the paradox is resolved in the mind of a child character. McLaughlin demonstrates how a storyteller, Minna's mother, guides child readers into an understanding that there are different truths equally valid. That stories are both lies and the truth, telling it slant, which is the alternative title of this book. The novel also implies an anxiety that all writers for children and teachers undoubtedly feel, that in spite of their best efforts, some readers are just not going to get it. McLaughlin's novel is an explanation, a response to this anxiety. What came to mind is, the phrase "mostly peaceful protests." That's a lie. But there's also truth in that, in the sense that there's a deeper truth. It reveals the ideology and the morals and the ethics of the person that says that when there's a violent riot breaking out, or a violent riot that has broken out. Oh, mostly peaceful protests. It says a lot about the person. So there's a deeper truth in that lie. In this chapter, I extend the discussion of lying. with a historical overview of the fact versus fiction dichotomy, followed by a discussion of children's storytelling and how it relates to children's understanding of fact and fiction. We tend to equate fact with truth and fiction with lies. But if lying is morally wrong and fiction is a pack of lies, then fiction too is wrong. See, I'm just going to step out of that. So this is where we sort of hear a little bit of, we know, right? We know the difference between right and wrong. So we can read this book and, take it all with a pinch of salt, but what we're getting is this vibe of like, almost like, this kind of book would be used by moral relativists to say sort of, well, if lies are wrong, then so is fiction, So, anyway, this book is highlighting some of the point I've been trying to make anyway, but I just wanted to say that. So, stepping back in. There is a long tradition of suspicion within philosophy of literature as a type of lying or falsity, declare Peter Lamarck and Stein Horgum Olsen. On the positive side, we think of fiction as something creatively constructed or imaged, a product of an active and inventive mind. On the negative side, we think in terms of falsity, non-existence, a failure of some kind, something to be avoided. There we go. So fairy tales are considered as something to be avoided. And I'm doing these top 5 reasons when they're all kind of inferring just, reading fairy tales is important and is good because of reasons. But to throw in this reason here, something to be avoided. Another thing that goes on is adults want children to learn real life skills as soon as possible. Some of these real life skills are good, and some of them are nonsense. One of the big ones here that they changed the curriculum for. So New Zealand came up with a curriculum, when was it, 1994, Te Wharaki, and it was basically to introduce learning outcome education style to preschoolers, to 3-year-olds, when it was really more like just play center. And this book had amazing stuff, actually had amazing, they got the Illuminati of pedagogy and they put in everything, like no matter how spiritual or non-spiritual or ethical, whatever you were, everyone applauded this book. Everyone, like globally. The spotlight was on New Zealand. Every learning outcome, but the big problem with the whole thing was the fact that it was learning outcome based. And I would love to talk to somebody about this, because you can get quote-unquote learning outcomes without it being a learning outcome indoctrination form of education. So it was just introducing the idea of learning outcomes, basically. And to do that, they made the curriculum perfect in terms of on paper. They had pedagogy from Rudolf Steiner. They had pedagogy from Maria Montessori. They had Reggio Emilia pedagogy. They had everything. They had the cream of the cream of the cream on top of every pedagogy you could find. The point of my story is that book has been edited in the last 20 years. Well, 15, 19, whatever years. It has been edited. And one of the big reasons for the editing was somebody, the people have spoken. They want to see more real-world practical learning outcomes such as money matters, mathematics, budgeting, or something like that. It was just something out of control like that. So the money focus, because of inflation, they want children to be more aware of dealing with money. I don't even know what the heck's going on with that. So they wanted to focus on things that kids care nothing about and start indoctrinating them into caring about things like money. And I think it was more around maths. I keep knocking. So, yeah. So, fairy tales are becoming more and more of a thing to be avoided. This is my point here. And I know I'm sort of just tacking that onto this. But let's keep reading. So yeah, there's something. Fairy tales are something to be avoided because we don't want to muck around with our kids, right? We want to get them on board so they have a better chance for what we believe is success later in life, which is talking bad about your neighbors and trying to get a better car than your neighbors, and being really rude to everybody, and being extremely unkind so you can feel richer, and then showing off how rich you are when you're actually not rich. You're just up to your eyeballs in debt and lying and all these kinds of things. Oh, the butthurt is real. Such attitudes, back to the book, such attitudes prevalent for thousands of years, unfortunately, still hold sway. If adults believe fiction is lying, they also condemn fantasy and imaginative play and fairy tales, here we go, and stories that allow children to experiment with different roles. And there's more to it than that. This is very, experiment with different roles. Like there's some, when I read that in a book after 2020, then it's, you know what it starts to sound like. But here's the point. It is imaginative play. An imaginative play is how everything good came about. An imaginative play is most likely this food for the soul that Rudolf Steiner talks about regarding fairy tales. Excuse me. In Lying to Children, Cisela Bock warns of those dour adults who confuse fiction and jokes and all that departs from fact with lying, and who try to eradicate both from the lives of their children. They fear what they take to be the unreality and falsity of fairy tales. They see lies and perversion in the stories children tell. They stifle every expression of imagination at crushing costs to their families and to themselves. And there we go. Point made. See you guys at the next one. No, we'll keep reading. Fairy tales have been criticized for decades for their sexism, violence, and lack of diversity. Oh, there's not enough diversity in this fairy tale. No, let's burn it. I don't know why I'm putting on a posh English accent for my diversity crowd. But they, or fantasy stories like them, still are vital to children's imaginations as they grow and indulge their imaginations, and later when they come to participate in shared reality, when they can tap into these reserves for adult creative problem solving. As I have discussed in Chapter 2, Children and Lying, it is crucial that the door remain open between inner and outer realities, to encourage exploration into alternate worlds, alternate truths through reading fiction. And I will say there are books that an adult may like that are appropriate for kids in terms of fantasy and excuse me, obviously, like, we would censor content that's not appropriate, right? Children are not sexualized, so we don't need to give them sexualized content, sexual content. That's why we don't do that. But kind of, I got to say, pretty much everything else is on the table. Pretty much everything else is on the table in terms of literature. So there's something out there for everybody, and I think fairy tales have a lot of stuff in it. Just to say, well, you know how we feel about the TV. Easy for me to say, I don't have kids. So my kids don't watch TV because I don't have any kids. But I will say, someone on Substack, a friend on Substack, Adrienne, she watched The Lord of the Rings with her 4-year-old daughter, and her Substack has become a little bit of a diary on how that has affected, how that has changed her daughter's life and is affecting their family life, and it's just out of control. It's just unbelievably amazing. So watching TV as a family, something that you all like, don't put on Dora the Explorer when you can watch Lord of the Rings, and you really like Lord of the Rings, and your son or daughter really wants to watch that. You'll be surprised. Shared experiences shared experiences for fun and enjoyment and pleasure in the family unit collective it's just out of control, amazing. And that's one of the and I guess I come from a place of maybe not having enough of that. And that's part of what drives me for this. I see that all the power is there in the family unit to change the world, to create freedom. Government schmovernment. All right. So that's my point here. Going back to reason number 2 for why fairy tales are eradicated from the lives of children by domineering adults is because of the dire circumstances presented in fairy tales. The trauma is desensitizing, when really it might possibly be, or probably is, leaving the door open between inner and outer realities, encouraging exploration and showing alternate worlds, alternate truths. And then there is the symbolism, of course. All right, so the Facts and Fictions of Minna Pratt addresses the problems authors have when targeting young readers. The children writing to Minna's mother are inexperienced and yet skeptical because they are already predisposed not to believe in the truth of a story. These readers are not critical readers, in that they can detect irony or unreliable narrators, but they are skeptical readers because they have been indoctrinated into perceiving all fiction as lies. Yeah, it's the fun police. Children writers face all manner of problems, but awareness of audience is crucial, as Alice must learn while in Wonderland. There is a spectrum of readers based on sophistication, from expert readers to those Maria Nikolaeva refers to as naive readers. Novice or unsophisticated readers, no matter what age, are at a deficit because they believe everything they read or hear. They have not become critical readers at all because they have not had the experience through living or reading to understand the conventions of fiction. What makes a story a story? In Reading for Learning, Cognitive Approaches to Children's Literature, Nikolaeva maintains that writers for children set out to teach novice readers to distinguish between fact and fiction. Through their reading, then, children learn about literacy, conventions, what marks a text as fiction, as well as how it corresponds to the outside world. Such conventions include once upon a time, an intrusive narrator, as in Winnie the Pooh, or talking animals, my favourite, especially a rabbit falling down a hole, which indicate that what they are reading is fiction, and yet they can still become immersed in it. Learn from it, cry over it, imitate it. Fiction emphasizes the fact of the fictionality of a story at the same time it states that the story is true. Maintains Michael Riffatera. Writers tend to employ signposts as a reminder to readers that they are playing a game with the writer. In What is Fiction? Gregory Curry contends, the author intends that the reader will read the work as fiction because he perceives the work to be fiction. Being engaged by a story is like playing make-believe, not only as an observer, but as a participant in the fictional world, so that reading becomes an interactive game between writer and reader. Lamarck and Olson concur. The reader pretends to believe in the realist literary work at the same time as he knows that it is fiction. In other words, part of the game of reading fiction is to learn how to suspend one's disbelief. In turn, fact versus fiction sets up a framework that facts equal truth and fiction equals lies. But facts versus fiction is a false dichotomy, and this is also Ahrimanic. Ahrimanic being the kind of egregore of hyper-materialism versus Luciferian being hyper-immaterialism. Sort of everything's all action or everything's all in your head. And social media is only going to make this, especially, I'm really sorry to say, especially Facebook, especially spending time on Facebook, is going to, whether we like it or not, is going to increase our brains to attach to these dichotomies, these fact versus fiction. Take a photo on Instagram of you eating an apple, and the comments say, "How dare you be so racist to bananas?" That is what happens with social media. It is hyper whatever. One photo means this is everything I do in my life. I'm so awesome. You must all do exactly this. And that is the Ahrimanic force that we need in balance with the Luciferian force. So, yes, they're not opposites because they depend on each other for their meaning. A fact is contingent upon context. And so, yeah, I'm just really worried that we're all losing our sense of humor. We're all losing our creativity. We're all losing everything. I saw an interesting video of, it was a documentary of Roald Dahl. And boy, I was jealous of that man. He'd wake up at some gentlemanly hour and wander through his whimsical garden in the English countryside and go to his little shed that he's got set up for his writing, and he puts the heater on, puts a blanket over him in a nice comfortable chair and has a writing desk and lights a cigarette and just sits there and writes, ponders and writes. And it just seems like that's something you're really not allowed to do. I mean, I know there are obviously authors in 2025. There are obviously people that write books still. I hope. You get what I mean. It seemed like such a slow pace of life, but Roald Dahl's books, how much has Roald Dahl's authorship changed the world? Has a Roald Dahl book affected you when you were a child? How much has that book affected how you live your life today? Rhetorical question. All right. A fact is contingent upon oh, here we go. The context is brought through narrative. For example, we can say that it is a fact that COVID-19 is caused by a virus, but where the virus originated is still a subject of debate. I'm just reading the book here, guys. That's all I'm doing. Okay? Don't shoot the reader. The facts change as new evidence is discovered, and so the story of its origin changes. Furthermore, most of us believe that the virus exists, despite not being able to see it for ourselves, because we have been taught to have faith in science, even though scientists' conclusions can be debated, as we see in the so-called controversies over vaccines and climate change. And that fact and fiction mentality can penetrate even the truth. Look at, well, mentality is probably the wrong word, but look at, what is it, the horse, the horse dewormer. I've read in some places that they say that it sterilizes you. And you may have a response to that. Oh, that's not true, blah, blah, blah. Or, yeah, it is true. Oh, my gosh. Well, either way, I don't know. But horse tranquilizer, that would be cool. I've got COVID. Yeah, take some ketamine. Oh, don't laugh too hard, Gino. You might reveal your past life. Oh, so yeah. Horse dewormer. A horse dewormer is could be a device for truth versus lies dichotomy. Oh, it turns out that horse dewormer actually sterilizes you and gives you AIDS or something like that. And oh, shoot. Is there any hope for us? I don't know. Okay, let's have a look. Oh my gosh, I'm talking way too much. I'm just skipping. Writers have always employed different strategies to persuade readers to believe them. And this is where the power lies, I think, in changing the world through reading and books. Anyway, when reading a religious text like the Bible, belief is assumed, since the contributing writers are vessels receiving the word of God and supposedly cannot be questioned. The Greeks depended upon the 9 muses for their inspiration. Similarly, a dream can serve as unfiltered inspiration, as Coleridge claims happened with Kubla Khan. Often artists will credit a muse as the originator of an idea or a guide through the entire writing process. Yeah, like songwriting. Songwriters, how many times have you read about, say, someone wrote this song and they're like, oh, it's just completely ripping off this song. And then you go and listen to that song and you're like, oh, yeah. I don't know how to rip off songs tastefully. I don't know how to rip them off and it still sound like my own, because all great songs, they sound completely original until they say, oh, I just completely stole it off this band. And then you listen to that band and you're like, oh my gosh, yeah, you did. Even though they are different and they're both amazing songs. So yeah, that's where I'm at with my songwriting. So often artists will credit a muse. With male writers, the muse is often a beautiful woman. Ooh. Such as Dante's Beatrice, which makes the female into an object only, never a subject, who creates her own art. Science fiction writer Ray Bradbury declares, I'm not in control of my muse does all the work. These attributions from authors to some kind of higher power are, in my view, a convenient dodge, an attempt to persuade critics that anything they have written is unassailable. Okay, stepping out of that, I don't believe that. In modern society, there is still the notion that literature, indeed all art, is somehow a matter of pure instinct, that it's created by geniuses, who have more idea of what they're doing than most passengers on airplanes have about the theory of jet propulsion. I do actually believe that a little bit. I do. How are you going to write a book? You just sit there with a pen and paper and just write. And on day one, you might write 3 lines, and then you want to throw it in the bin. The next day, you might write 1 line. And then a month later, you've got a few pages and an idea. Where did that idea come from? So yeah, I do not agree with what this probably Marxist person is saying, but that's not the point of the book, of reading this story here today. So, Well, here we go. Forgetting that talent is not enough, but requires much practice, persistence, and endurance. Okay, I see what she means here. Right. To admit that writing or painting or creating anything necessitates work would suggest that writing is not an art but a craft. Indeed it is. It's a craft. I'm just talking about the idea. That's the magical genius of human creativity. And that's dealing with, again, the part of the brain, a part of the brain that is stifled from television use in the early years. Me so sorry. True story. Although there may be child artist prodigies like Mozart and Picasso, children who aspire to be writers generally have to read a lot of diverse types of literature and write a lot of juvenilia before they produce a text that will be appreciated as a work of art. If ever. Yeah, if ever. Oh my gosh, to all the outsider artists in the world, God bless you, I salute you. Don't give up. Just do it because it's fun. And ignore everybody. When a literary text asks for readers' willing suspension of disbelief, as Coleridge famously described the process of reader immersion, then it cannot simply rely upon instant believability because it was divinely inspired, nor because of its likeness to reality, but instead because of its rhetorical power. Rhetorical power. There's a lot of rhetorical power in fairy tales. For Ursula Le Guin, the truth of fact and the truth of fiction both depend on the manner of their telling. That is, historical fact cannot stand on its own but must be presented, narrated in a way that makes it believable to the reader. Writers must use rhetorical strategies and conventions to elicit readers' deep engagement, to make their narrative seem true. If writers can't convince readers to believe their stories, then what's the use of writing them? Okay, I'm just going to skip down to children's storytelling. Many of the stories written for children reflect readers' cognitive development, but the stories children create themselves can reveal their understanding of fact and fiction. And their understanding of fact and fiction from the stuff that they come up with is deeper and more knowing than majority of adults. Those of us that come online to the truth, we're sort of turning back the clock on that. But I've gone into that in, well, not in huge detail, but I've gone into that on The Secret Kindergarten for Grown-Ups edition and some of the stuff here on Otherworld Connections. For example, in Free Play, one of the main free play group psychodramas that play out in the early childhood educational institutions is police play. The police versus the bad guys versus the good guys. The police are never the good guys. They're never the good guys, according to young children. And that is universal. I tell you right now, if you quit your job, go and work in a preschool that allows free play as part of the learning process, you will see a game called Police. And there will be police, and there will be bad guys, and there will be good guys. But hang on a minute, I thought the police were the good guys. No, they're the order followers. And the kids know it. The kids know it. It's just there. And this is why I do everything that I do, because I saw these crazy things while I was doing, while I was learning about, objective morality from Mark Passio. It's true. I was doing the What on Earth is Happening podcast and all the ancillary material, blah, 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 while I was teaching and seeing these unbelievable things. So I'd listen to Mark Passio going, police on the order followers, because that's how he sounds, right? I'm just kidding. So he's telling me that, and then I'm going, I'm going to work thinking, yeah, I don't think I quite get it. And then the kids are just playing this police game. And then there's the good guys. And it's like, oh, thanks, kids. Thanks, Mark Passio. So, yeah. Oh, we got 5 minutes left. I've done lots of intervening. Okay. In The Stories Children Tell, Making Sense of the Narratives of Childhood, Susan Engel argues that storytelling plays a crucial role in children's cognitive development. Through storytelling, children begin to define themselves by creating and playing various roles, and even, like a director or narrator, organizing other participants into a scene. So yeah, row your boat gently down the stream. Merrily, merrily, life is but a dream. And kids know that. Everything's just a story. Life is a story. Through our stories, we construct ourselves, she says. And to a great extent, we are the stories we tell. Engel discusses children's gradual understanding of archetypes and story patterns, even those on television commercials, and how they alter those scripts to fit their own lives. Notice how that doesn't read as they just completely imitate it and then go and do that. I think they live their lives and are aware of those scripts as things that can play out in reality. Okay, back to the reading. Through stories, they create a worldview for themselves, organize experience, and grow cognitively in their ability to analyze and solve problems. Real events act as scripts as well, and storytelling alters those scripts to empower storytellers and help them gain mastery over not just language but their lives as well. Storytelling serves as the means to help children identify their inner and outer realities. As children use the story form to clarify for themselves the difference between what they have made up and what they have experienced. Because story form is one in which different types of reality can be interwoven. I doubt that Engel would ever accuse a young storyteller of being a liar, for she expects that sticking to a purely fictional or factual account is not of primary concern to most young storytellers, or, for that matter, to good novelists. She assumes that preschoolers will interweave fact and fantasy as they try to make sense of the world around them and to construct and change who they are and how they appear to others. Engel does not worry that preschoolers merge fact and fantasy, for to her that is a positive sign of their cognitive development. Separating factual experience and fictional experience, she assures us, is a part of their later development. Okay. Yes, indeed. And we'll leave it there for today because we have 1.5 minutes to go. So that was reading through Anita Tarr's 2024 book, Lying, Truthtelling and Storytelling in Children's and Young Adult Literature. Telling it slant. And yeah, so the moral of the story, as always, is I believe that reading fairy tales to young children is the best and most simplest solution in 2025 to make a change in the world, to create more freedom in the world, because fairy tales are a spiritual food, a nutrition for the soul, and inside the fairy tales are teachings of universal laws and principles. And fairy tales are so darned interesting that they can inspire the adults to learn about the symbolism and the meaning of them, and they'll get more knowledge about who their children are and what we really are as a collective. And that's the end of that. So thanks so much for tuning in, and thanks again to Revolution.radio for sorting all this stuff out. And I love you all. Take care. We'll see you at the next one. Bye for now.